A very warm welcome to this webinar on cracking e-commerce companies. We have with us a distinguished personality today who will be sharing his experiences and providing valuable suggestions which would help every aspirant find a secret recipe to cracking campus recruitment processes at e-commerce companies for product management and program management roles. We have Vamshi with us today. Vamshi is currently working as a program manager at Amazon. He completed his MBA in Information Management from SP Jain University of Management and Research. He did his autumns at Amazon and bagged a PPO. So let's get started. If you want to add something to your introduction, please go ahead, Vamshi.
Thanks, Harsh, for starting this session and bringing us all together. So maybe I'll give a quick background about me, and then we can start the session. So yeah, as Harsh said, myself Vamshi. Nice to meet you on this Sunday afternoon. So to give a background, I'm from Hyderabad and I did my BTech in Computer Science and Engineering from NIT Patna. Post which I worked as a software developer for 2 years, like 8 months at Samsung Noida and then for 14 months at Qualcomm. And then I realized I need to do an MBA because I want to get a grasp of the business of the companies of which I'm part of. And then I pursued my MBA in Information Management from SPJMR. I was lucky to get an opportunity to work for like Amazon in my autumns, where I was part of the customer service team. And then luckily I converted it. Now here I'm as a full-time employee working at Amazon in the role of program manager. And yeah, looking forward to a session.
Thanks, Vamshi. And also, one of the most important things, he was the national winner of Invictus. So, like one of the dream companies for any MBA graduate who wants to maybe specialize in consulting and strategy. But having said that, I mean, thanks for joining, Vamshi. And
Thank you.
just like quickly, I'll give a background about this session that we have, and although every one of us know it because we have been having these sessions every weekend. So, firstly, we'll start with a little experience that you must have had during your autumn's process. I mean, the companies that you sat for, and what were the criteria for, say, I mean, did you have something in mind with respect to e-commerce, or it was just maybe you converted it and so you got in there. So, things from your autumns, and then we'll move on to the strategies that you had to maybe prepare for your interviews. You must have sat for maybe a couple of interviews. So, the kind of questions that you encountered, say in IT analytics specifically, and from e-commerce brands, because it's their operations are mostly digital, and then operational side of things are more stronger compared to say marketing side. So that is something that we'll get into. And then again, the kind of project that you had in your autumns, and then how did you convert it into a PPO? What things did you do from your side, which maybe turned out to be a game changer for you? And then
Sure.
again, we'll talk about certain MBA things that generally people experience, and I mean hacks to MBA, like obviously in that sense. So specifically to your
Sure.
specialization, and for people who are engineers, because you must be knowing it all. I mean how to get
Yeah,
into such
got it.
companies and stuff. So just that, and then we will open the session for questions for the audience. Whatever questions they have, they can. That's the broad agenda of the session. So quickly, I'll just I'll let you speak and share about your summer's experience, your preparation strategies, and then whatever you would suggest these people to do maybe in the coming 2 months when their internship interviews are also going to start.
Sure. So maybe I'll pick it up one by one and start with
Yeah.
the flow, like the process.
Mm-hmm.
So like luckily in SP we have autumn, so we don't have this vigor to prepare for a summers as soon as we join, because in other colleges the summers generally start in September and you join in June. I believe it's August this year, but yeah, we have this freedom of 1 year to explore your passion and then join and then prepare for autumn. So that's the one luxury we have in SP. So going for the preparation, I think CV is the most important thing for any MBA graduate. Like you need to have your CV in place, which goes through multiple rounds of iterations, which was the same with me. I got the CV reviewed, first getting the points approved from your manager and then framing them in the right way using the keywords so that we get those shortlists, which again is quite random in MBA, which you'll get to know, realize quite soon. But that's the effort we do. So CV preparation was one thing which I did quite vigorously. Like I reached out to my friends from various other colleges, because luckily my friends from other colleges in Excel, Lucknow and all, they were done with their summer. So they had a much better idea of how the CV shortlisting and all those things work. So yeah, CV shortlisting, getting it reviewed by the alumni, getting it reviewed by my seniors. So it went through multiple rounds of iteration, and I would say I spent quite a lot of time in the CV and what are the points that would go in the CV. And then we had to take a decision, like what are the companies which you are targeting at, like obviously your preparation would be. So for me, I took a calculated decision, like I had 1 year to explore. So then I took a calculated decision ki consulting is something which is not my forte, and I'll not be venturing into there, but I would want to more venture into, the e-commerce side, which I believed was the future. And then even the other startup companies like Uber, and then I wanted to get into even give a shot at FMCG companies. They have their own corporates. So I done my MBA in information management. So I wanted to explore the FMCG side of it. So my preparation was specific to this, but before the preparation, I would say we do have this PNG 64 questions, and we do have the other areas which help you. So my target area was within information management. One was product management. So my preparation was more focused towards product management. And within that, when I come to CV, what I would suggest is if you have a CV in place, at least try to create a half pager or one pager document for each of the points on your CV, so that, and then try to create a pitch, like a 15-second pitch, 30-second pitch, and then a detailed analysis. So these are the various criteria for each of the CV point which I created. So tomorrow when you go, what I was planning was, this was the feedback which we got from our seniors. I think it's very valid. So the idea behind was, tomorrow if an interviewer asks you to explain in one line, like to a layman, how do you explain what you have done in your work X? You should be able to like explain it in 15 seconds or 30 seconds, or let's say X amount of time. So add a detailed one pager for each of the points mentioned on my CV. Like this is what I'll be speaking given the time constraints. So that helped me further streamline my process, because most of the interviews are CV based. And then we do have few rounds before, like what you call the interview process, which is the GD round, and then we have the case study rounds. So for GD, what we did was, within a SPJML, we had this group SBU, student body unit, which used to conduct GDs. So I went and attended most of the GDs. So I used to go there. I did have this fear of speaking out in GDs and all, but I went there. I participated in the GDs. Initially, it was not good. Like, the feedback which I got was, yeah, you need to know the points are not coming out clear, or they're not structured. So, but again, we went back, work. Then what we realized, okay, we'll do is we had within our floor, we had 3 to 4 people who were interested in the GD. So we thought, let's come up with this idea that we 4 people will sit within our room and then practice for the GDs. So one of the guys used to come and give a random topic, one of the ones within us 4. So each one used to come up with a specific topic on each day alternatively. And it used to hardly take 10 to 15 minutes to discuss a GD, and then we used to give quick feedback to ourselves who was moderating the GD. That was the preparation for GD, then the CV preparation, then company specific. So for company specific, what we used to do was so you get the shortlist within a week before the actual process starts. So we knew these are the companies which we will be interviewing for, and then GDs. So we went through the interview transcripts of the seniors to get an idea what are the questions they asked. So that was really helpful. Or speak to the seniors who have worked in who gave those interviews in the previous years, or who are working currently, to get an idea what the company is doing. And the second bit is to understand what the main focus of the company is right now in this financial year. What are the focus of the company? So if you go through their shareholder letter, or if you go to their website and the recent news in which the company has been, you get a brief background about what the company is doing and what are their key interests, and where your interest is. So that's one thing which help you get a background of the company, understand the values of the company. Because the way, so to give an example, like Amazon is very much focused on the leadership principles. So whatever points on your CV, they try to see if you have demonstrated the leadership principles, and it's customer obsessed. So to give an example, while preparing for Amazon, I kind of try to relate each of the points on my CV with the leadership principles, so that they get the connect. Amazon knows that this is the right candidate who is the right fit for our culture. So that was that thing. Regarding case studies, I didn't focus much, but to give a background, like the people who have done it, like those who are planning to get into IT consulting and other consulting roles, they did have this group of 3 people, where one was enacting as the one who interviewer, the other one was the interviewee, and there was a moderator who was observing and then trying to see where the person was going, whether his approach was right. So that really helped based on the feedback from my batchmates. So I think, yeah, that's how I went.
Okay, so just 2, 3 things that I picked up was for the GDs that you had. Generally, what sort of topics did you encounter in your GDs? And second thing is, for people, I mean, most of the people would have a problem with speaking during their group discussions. Like they'll be scared that if they try to speak or if they put their points out, they'll be cut by the other GD people. So how should one counter that situation? And if suppose you're not having any points of on say a particular topic which has been given to you on the GD, how do you focus on maybe putting something relevant forward and not just maybe blabbering?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good point. So again, GD topics are of two types. One is abstract, and then one is where we have proper content. Abstract topics, I'll to give an example, like rose or sky is blue, or it can be any abstract topic. Like they can give a single word. So it depends on a company. Like few companies go for abstract topics, and few companies go for the content-based topics. So for content-based topics, again, you need to be averse with what you call. You need to go through the recent happenings in the news. So for me, if I realize during my autumn the Kashmir, like there was a recent revoke of the recently article, so there was much news debate going about that. Then we had the World Cup around that time, so there was a debate going around that whether Indian strategy was good. So mostly the GD topics would be focused on current affairs if it's content-based. If it's an abstract, then I think we have this frameworks where we have the special where we analyze the political economic and then try to see whether which part of this. So if a topic comes and then you're not sure what I need to speak, then try to break it into various parts, like try to see the political angle, economic angle, social angle. So there is at least in one area, like if the entire group is focused on the political angle or economic angle, and if you try to bring in the social angle, which even if without a background, with the fair idea of what is happening in the GD, you get to know, okay, this is what is happening and this is something which I can pitch in. And if you try to bring a new point, that would be a brownie point, obviously. And based on my interaction, like the GDs and the shortlisting, which I observe, I see people who have been like, it's good to be aggressive, but it's at the same time, it's very bad to be over aggressive. And if you keep on cutting people and not letting them speak, then I think it's obviously seen as a negative point. So I would suggest if you speak even a decent amount of time, you need not interrupt, like speak for 5 to 10 times, but if you just speak for 2 to 3 times, and if you make a valid points, and if the points you made is the basis for the further discussion which happened in the GD, I think that would be the brownie points, and you'll be able to make it to the GD. So that would suffice, I believe.
Okay. And for e-commerce companies specifically, I mean, what do you think would be the, I mean, for your GD specifically, what was the topic, and generally, what do these e-commerce companies like Uber, Flipkart, Amazon, what do these companies focus on in their group discussion? Is it like mostly revolving around strategy, or, I mean, they can throw even abstract topics also?
So I'll like Amazon doesn't have a GD, so luckily it's good. So what Amazon is one company which doesn't believe in presentations and GD. They believe in documentation because they believe we shouldn't judge a person by his communication skills or the way he presents, and it's more needs to be dependent on the content. So that's how Amazon operates. But I can speak about Uber because I've been part of the Uber GD. So in my Uber GD, as I said, the topic was should Dhoni retire or not? So that was the topic, which because it's again ongoing because of we had a recent World Cup in July 2019, and then post which we had our autumn. So it was a related topic. So people were speaking, they put their opinions, but as I said, even the people who spoke for one or twice but made valid points made it through the GD, and I have seen like people who have spoken the largest amount of the time in the GD and who were simply beating around the bush and not making any value addition, but just trying to beat around the bushes, they didn't make the cut through. So as I said, it's mostly like situation, like it's current affairs based in Uber. Flipkart, I'm not sure because I have been not part of the process, so I can't comment on that. But Amazon doesn't have a GD, and Uber. And for e-commerce, it's mostly like if I say it should be current affairs, and it depends on the role for which they're hiring for. So like Amazon hires for multiple roles, so it doesn't have a GD. Uber has an operations manager role for which it hires, so they have a GD. If they're hiring for a common role, then they go with the GD. If they're hiring for a team specific role, then they generally don't have the GD shortlist.
Okay. So, just like you said, that Amazon does not have like a GD. So, what is the process that Amazon has? Is it just direct personal interviews, or what is it? Maybe preceded by something else?
So in Amazon, we have this shortlisting, CV shortlisting, which is common for all the companies. And then recently, like it was not part of my autumns, but during the final, they have this online test where they test your quantitative and logical ability. And then once the shortlist is done, then you are interviewed for a specific team. Like at least in other companies, you are interviewed for the overall company, and then you get assigned to a team once you join. But it was the other way in Amazon, where the team which is recruiting, who have a vacancy, come and recruit for the particular role, so they know what they exactly they are looking for, what are the skill set they are looking for there in the team, so they have the complete idea. and they see if there is a match for those skill sets. So again, it's based on the leadership principle. So for a few candidates, so one of the leadership principles is diving deep. The other principle is innovate and simplify. So these are the few, like at least I think these are the two leadership principles which way they were looking for in the team I was interning for, which I realized later when I joined. But in the interview you will not be realizing it. But again, the interview was more focused around these points, like what are the points where I went, dive deep and found out the solution. What was the process where I showed bias for action and then drive things. So those are the for Amazon. It was team specific, and then that's how it went.
So did you sit for more than one interview? Like, did you sit for any interview apart from Amazon?
So interview, I gave 3 interviews. So the first one was, as I said, Uber. The second one was Media.net, and the third one was Samsung, and fourth I converted Amazon.
Okay, so then what similarities or what differences did you find in like these 4 interviews in which you sat? I mean, what sort of questions were asked in each and every sort of interview? So like, it was focused on HR maybe in one of the interviews, and might be just focused on very technical things in one of the interviews. So how was this process for you?
So I would say like the common thing across these 4 interviews which I observed was one thing, they were more focused on my CV. Like the points they were grilling me on my CV, the points which I mentioned on the CV, it was more CV focused, at least the first rounds, initial rounds which I was part of. Later it moved on, in the later stages it moved on to the HR rounds and more about the case studies and then the guesstimates and the other approaches like solving puzzles, which was part of the second round, but initial round was more focused on the CV. So what I could understand was in the initial round, they were just trying to check whether this guy knows what he has done. Like if you have mentioned something on the CV, then you should know in and out of it. So that's the first check which they made, whether he's bluffing around or whether he actually did the stuff. So that's what the first check which I observed was part of the first round across all the companies. Then when we come to the like where this interviews vary, as I said, Amazon was more team specific, where they saw whether you are a part of the particular team. Samsung, they were looking for an overall fit to the culture, which I believe. So I had a previous background in Samsung, so they wanted to analyze like why I left Samsung in the past and why I want to be back in Samsung. So that was more focused in the GD. And then in Media.net, they were trying to see whether I knew the business. Like Media.net operates in a specific business, which is ad business. So they sell ads. So they wanted to know whether I have done my background, whether I have the knowledge of ad business work, how network works. So that was sample check they were seeing whether this guy is interested, so that he took the extra efforts to know what the company is working in, and he got a basic idea. And then they wanted to see how would I sell ads, what would be my approach. So they gave me few cases where I had to, and more looking at the structure which I was following, and it was quite long. Uber overall was, again, as I said, it was more about the overall fit to the company, not to a specific team as such. So that was how Uber process was.
Okay. So now that once you converted your Amazon, you must have gotten a project for your autumns. So what was that project, and how did you go about preparing for that project?
Sure. So as I said, I was part of the customer service team. So customer, as I said, and again, Amazon is customer obsessed. Their vision is to be the world's earth's most customer obsessed company. So the gap which they observe currently in Amazon is key. In Amazon, we receive the customer feedback in many ways. Like people write product reviews, then we have social media comments, then people call customer service and say like they discuss the problems which they have. So and we have chat support. So the different medias through which customers give feedback to Amazon. So again, it was like most of this feedback is in the form of text. Even the calls which we had the internal algorithm within Amazon which converted this phone conversation speech to text algorithm. So they wanted to devise a program, as I intended in the role of program manager. So they wanted to devise a program where we could grasp this feedback and then try to identify product quality defects. So by product quality defects, like let's take the example of a mixer grinder. So there might be a particular mixer grinder where most of the customers would have complained about this mixer grinder has burning issues. So like this particular model. So how do we identify? Like it's quite tedious to go through all the comments for those mixer grinders because Amazon has thousands of products listed on its website. Then, so how do we go about it? How do we use this customer feedback to identify those product quality defects? And another gap which we observed was tomorrow, like let's say there was this particular brand Adidas. We observed this, the shoes sold by Adidas had a lot of size issues. Like customers were not return the product because there was a size issue related to Adidas. So the problem was they were not sure whether it was the size is too big or the size is too less, so that they can go and update its size chart accordingly for the Amazon products, for the Adidas products sold on Amazon. So how do we capture those data? So the customer clearly mentions in the comments ki, like at least most of the customers ki, this size is too big and hence I want to return. The size is small and doesn't fit me, so I want to return it. So the business action which we can take on basis of this inputs is we can go back to the brand and say ki your size chart is mismatching to the chart which is currently followed in the marketplaces by other players like Nike, Puma and all, because we don't see customers returning the products because of size issue there, and it's happening in your, for particular your brand. So you need to maybe change your size sheet or better communicate it. That would be one issue. That would be one business insight which we can take. So that was my problem. So what I want to do was, Amazon has a bit of tools. They added two tools which we could extract the data, but they didn't know after extracting data, how do we present it or how do we extract the data, right data, so that we get the buy-in from the category. So we have a category teams which sell, like for shoes, we have a category team. For mixer grinder, there's a category team. How do we go back to the business and say, yeah, this is the problems which is faced in your ASINs and how can you take in actions on this? So yeah, I worked on this. So one unfortunate thing and fortunate thing for me was this: no one worked on those tools before in Iron Marketplace, at least. So most of my interactions used to be based on the teams in US, which devised the model, which devised the tools. So I had to set up late night calls with them and understand what exactly are the capabilities of the tool, where are the limitations which we have, and what are the bottlenecks, like what is the smooth process. The other thing which I did as part of my interaction from day one was I tried to identify who are the stakeholders for my project. So I identified for my project the stakeholder, like obviously the team which you are working on is one of the stakeholders, but again, the categories, as I mentioned, I had to get interact closely with the categories. So various categories which I'm working for, so they were my stakeholders. So at the end of the day, if I want to convert my PPO, my stakeholders should be happy. So that's something which feedback which we got from our seniors. So try to identify the stakeholders, try to speak to them during the entire journey, like at least schedule, try to catch up with them at least once in a week to analyze how we are going. So what it helped me was helped me identify what are the main pain points of the stakeholders, like where is the gap in the current process and how can I fit in. So if I had a solution, first challenge was to identify the gap. So once I identify the gap could only be identified by speaking to the stakeholders. Once I identify the gap, then I had a solution. Again, I needed to find it out whether the solution proposed by me was the right solution or not. Again, the stakeholders helped me. So when I proposed my solution to a stakeholder, like instead of going and presenting it in your last meeting, try to interact with the stakeholders during an entire internship so that you get the feedback and can work on the feedback. Again, it's a lean mechanism which I follow. So few of the ideas the stakeholders gave me, like pointed out the challenges which we can be facing because if we implement this. And again, they will be better ones to point out the challenges because they are in the process and they don't know in and out. So they might have tried out few things and it might not have worked out because of the challenges, and they'll be able to point it out. So they pointed out challenges for the things which are not working. For the ones which were working and which they saw there is a potential to fill the gap, they said, yeah, you can go ahead and try this. So constant feedback helped me amend my way and then follow the path where I wanted to be. That was one. The other piece which I would suggest was if you are suggesting something, at least in Amazon, like it's data driven, and I have observed with people from across my batch who have worked in other colleges, the one constant thing was if you are proposing something or if you are suggesting, most of the like internship roles would be strategy driven, like where you need to propose something new. So if you're proposing something, try to do a pilot. If not, like try to do a pilot at least for one particular piece. Like I have done a pilot picking up 5 categories where I went and pitched in my idea, like how my program will help the categories improve their overall sales and how will it reduce product quality defects. Got their alignment and ran a pilot for, let's say, 1 week. I ran pilot for only 30 to 40 ASINs, but at least the success rate on the 30 to 40 ASINs was 90%. So when I went in and pitched in my idea in my final review, my leadership was aligned because they saw the pilot was a success. The only problem which they knew would be was to scale the process, which they thought they can take care of because of the knowledge and expertise they had. But at least one piece they were sure my particular strategy will be working. So that was I think the point where I cracked the interview. So this was how I followed my internship, and I think two main criteria for anyone who would be joining an internship would be to constantly interact with identify your stakeholders, constantly interact with them to know whether you're going in the right direction, and try to run a pilot, like validate whatever idea you are proposing or whatever solution you are proposing, so that the people know, yeah, this is something which will work, the ones who are reviewing.
Mhm. Thank you, Vamshi, for that elaborate explanation. But just two, three questions that I have in mind that I picked up from your from your experience that you shared for your internship. First thing is what I mean. If I ask you the three things that made you crack PPO at Amazon, so that's first question. So what were the three things according to you that mattered? And I mean, what generally it is in that company? Like you said, that Amazon comes for lot many roles apart from just suppose say from an IT domain. So what did you see? Because you must have seen it because you are a part of that organization, and others from your batch are also part of that organization, even though they are in different domains. So what did you see was common across board for you guys? I mean, things that you guys did. Was it like initiating something new, or maybe like you said, doing a pilot, something of that sort? So what do you think was a differentiator for you? Like the three things. Second thing is someone, because like most of the colleges nowadays do not have an IT specific domain. They have scrapped it. It's like because SPGen has specifically 4 to 5 domains for which it hires. So you have it there. But most of the colleges don't have. But for engineers specifically, because Amazon goes to different colleges as well, and they will offer this program manager role to other colleges as well. So being an engineer, what do you think can be an approach of say people this year who are maybe planning to join or aspiring to join an e-commerce brand like Amazon, Flipkart, or something of that sort. So, what would an engineer or an IT engineer, what should that person focus on? And the third thing is specifically for say e-commerce websites. Yeah. So specifically for e-commerce websites, what do you think generally they look at in a candidate? Because there are certain companies which have like a very big inclination towards maybe cultural fit. Just like you said that Samsung wanted a cultural fit. I mean, it was focusing more on having a culture in place in that person. I mean, seeing whether the values are in alignment with that of the company. So, what exactly do these e-commerce websites or e-commerce companies look at when they're hiring? So these three questions.
Sure. Thanks for the three. So I'll pick it up one by one. So the
Yeah.
top three things. So as I said, like you'll be given a project in your internship. So most of the project will have a strict, like this is your task which you need to do, and then they leave up to you how you do it. So if I need to pick the top three things, one, it would be the approach which you followed. How did you break, like even if you don't come up with a solution, like you need not come up with a solution, or you need not come up, your project need not be successful in the pilot. The first thing we do check is he following the right approach? Is he like looking into the right directions and obviously learning from his mistakes? Like obviously if you do something, it not be that you start your part in the, like right from the first go you'll be in the right path. Is he able to amend his ways? Like how far obviously interacting with the stakeholder, that would be the first part. The second obviously would be is work culture ethics, like obviously interacting with his team members. Like is he taking the responsibility, is he taking the ownership? So that's the second thing, like the cultural fit and the work ethics which you have, does it fit to into the team specific role which you're hiring for? That's the second thing I would obviously believe. And the third thing which I would believe was the, as I said, the specific skills for the particular role. In the program manager role, they were looking for quantitative skills, and then they were looking for analytical skills. So does this guy using those skills in the approach which he is following? And then for, like, let's say stakeholder management was one of the major skills which was important for a program manager. So they were trying to see how was my interaction with the stakeholders, how could I convey my thoughts clearly, how could I bring everyone on the same table, was I able to do it, and how was I driving the project. So these were the main areas where which I was analyzed. And my one good thing, again I said, I was constantly interacting with the stakeholders, so also interacted with managers. I used to have like at least a bi-weekly review with him where I asked him for his inputs, like where are the areas which you identify I'm lacking, or where are the areas which I can improve. So to give an example, how this helped me was after 1 month into my internship, my manager came back to me and said, see, you are doing good, you're having the right skills, but one thing where I see you can do even much better, and which can be in on your way to achieve the PPO, is your stakeholder management, because I see it's not that good, or you're not able to convey your ideas clearly, or you're not able to bring everyone. So it gave me, like, if this was some feedback which I received at the end of my internship, I couldn't have done anything on this. But since I received it halfway into my internship, I could work on it. So again, as I said, the team specific roles which you are looking at, to answer your first question, for program manager specific, if Amazon, I believe Amazon is going to other colleges and they're looking for program manager specific roles. So the top three things I would say for anyone to crack the program manager role, one would be, at least in Amazon, would be to be well versed with the leadership principles of Amazon. As I stressed earlier, and I can't stress more, Amazon is most like they live and dive for the leadership principles. So try to relate each point on your CV with the one of the leadership principles, like how did you show bias for action, or how did you earn trust. So the various points in your CV, that would be the leadership principles number one. Two, Amazon asks for team specific roles to try to get an idea of what the team does. Like if you are getting interviewed for the seller team, like go and check the news, what like go into the Amazon website and see what the seller team is doing, what are the main focus areas. If you're interviewing for customer service, you go and check what are the customer service team doing. Try to see in the news what the team is in for. So Amazon has a huge business, so try to see in two. And as I said, for program specific manager role, they will be mostly looking for your analytical skills, quantitative skills, and stakeholder management. These are the few important criteria, skills which they are looking for in a particular role. So similarly, for other roles, I would suggest speak to your alumni or the seniors who are working in the particular role and ask them what are the top skills which you need to drive this particular role. Like for product manager, what is the role? Product manager, again, a stakeholder management is one key important thing. And then you need to identify the customer obsession. That's another important thing, because you need to identify the customer obsession, customer pain point for the product manager. So try to interact with the seniors and try to see what are the three or four main points where you see this role, the key skills required for this role. And then in your interview, like try to use various occasions in your tell me about yourself, or when you're explaining a points on your CV or any role, how can you bring these skills and show to the interviewer you have these particular skills and they should hire you because you have these skills. So I think that would be the strategy to track any role. And regarding e-commerce as such, one thing which I observed across all the e-commerce things was most of this e-commerce like Amazon, Flipkart, and all, like they are very fast paced and they are growing tremendously, like be it Swiggy. And also one skill which they look for in all the candidates, one common skill which they look for, ownership. So they want people who take high ownership. They don't wait for people to like just wait and get other people to do the things. You need to be ready to take up the things which like if there is no one able to do that, you need to be ready to pick it up. So to give a background, there was one friend of mine who was interning in Flipkart. So unfortunately during this time he didn't have, like you need to fetch data from the databases, and you generally have a business analyst to do that work for you. But during this time, the business analyst team was on a leave, so he didn't have the leverage to use other business analysts. But he took the extra efforts to learn the basic skills queries so that he can fetch the data and then work upon the data without like taking the ownership piece of it. So that, and based on the feedback which I got from him, he said that was a brownie point because his manager highly appreciated him taking the ownership and not waiting for people to come out and do the things for him. So I think ownership is one key skill which all these e-commerce companies would looking for, and obviously they do look for the logical and analytical skills, because this is something most of these e-commerce companies are completely data driven. So if you propose any idea, they try to see what are the savings which we get out of, what are the metrics which we are tracking as part of this idea, and how do we see an improvement in this idea. So analytical and logical skills are the second most important skill, I believe, for cracking the e-commerce companies.
That was actually very helpful. The way you explained it was great. And just the last segment on on summers or maybe autumns is, I mean, we talked about the different cultural requirements of these companies and everything else. So now that you know that the process this year is going to happen online for like most of the colleges. So in this scenario, what would you recommend, or what would you maybe recommend as a preparation strategy for the students, the incoming students, for their preparation for interviews specific to e-commerce? What should be their preparation strategies? One or two things you have highlighted that you should be maybe having one point ready for each bullet point in your CV. You should have, say, a page written on leadership principles of Amazon. But apart from that, like this is like a cultural aspect of the interview, like the HR aspect. But apart from that, what would you recommend as a preparation strategy for them, for their finals, or for their summers or autumns? And how did you prepare?
Yeah.
Obviously, that's
So yeah, I think I covered a bit of it in
yeah.
in the past, but I'll do try to elaborate it. So as I mentioned, one would be obviously your CV preparation. What are the points which you want to discuss on your CV? And because it's the main thing for you to get a shortlist. So get your CV reviewed with your alumni and then your seniors, as I mentioned earlier. The second thing would be to try to analyze the news for which the companies, and for the company specific, see interview experience of your seniors. Like if you try to interact with the seniors or alumni and ask them what are the questions which they were asked, what are the main focus areas which they're focusing on. Because again, a particular company can focus on HR aspects. Like PNG is one company which focus on more on cultural fit, like they focus on the HR aspect and all. And then other companies which they focus on your past experience, whether they see whether the work done by you will help them get into the work done which they're currently planning for you to get allotted. So try to speak to your seniors and try to see what is the main focus area, whether it will be HR based or whether it will be WorkX based, or in Genman companies like Tata and Mahindra and all, they more focus on the leader, like the projects which you have taken up, or the position of leadership which you have held up. So try to analyze that. That would be the second thing. Go through the interview experience of your seniors. Third, and try to the third thing would be to analyze what the company is currently focusing on. What are the main focus areas of the companies, and how could you bring about a change in those focus areas? If not focus areas, at least that will give an idea of about if they are at the end of the interview, they'll try to ask you like, do you have any questions? So you can ask logical questions like, if this is what you're doing to do, how are you planning to go about it? Like to give an example, like if now Amazon is coming to one of your campuses, then you can say because of the COVID, still Amazon managed to deliver the product. So how did you go about it? Like how did you do about it? And if you see the recent interactions of Amazon has been largely focusing on sellers, like how to onboard third party sellers, how to onboard sellers who are like producing handicrafts, the goods which are in remote places of India, how to export them and try to sell it in other foreign countries. So this has been the main focus area of Amazon, and they have encountered a few challenges like the logistic perspective. The other thing would be the customer service perspective. Since I was in the customer service team, I know our employees could not make it to the offices to handle the customer calls, and still we managed to deliver products and reduce the customer grievances. So how did you go about it? So this gives you the points to talk about in your interview, where the interviewer will be also more happy to know that, okay, this guy has done the background research and he is showing the interest to be in part of my company, which is the key in which they are looking for. Is the guy really interested to be part of my company, or is just another interview for this guy? It's like go shortlisted him and he's simply sitting in an interview. So I think that will be the key.
Okay, cool. So after having discussed about the assessment part during interviews and GDs and all these processes, again, I mean, we just talk about like generic MBA related stuff. Like how does one go about building their profile in such a way that they get maybe preference from say e-commerce companies? I mean, what do these companies look at from say a documentation point of view? Like in a CV, what are the things which they maybe harp on, or something which they would want to delve deeper? As in, if suppose someone has mentioned that they have certain experience which is somewhere related to say an e-commerce brand or say operations or logistics firm, just like you said, so they would be like, let's talk to this guy and see what exactly can he contribute in our company. So similarly, what do you think is like from say a CV point of view, what do these companies look at maybe while shortlisting? And apart from that, if someone wants to maybe get working for the world's biggest company, which is Amazon, what exactly should they have in their CV from now onwards? Because if suppose someone does not get through such companies in their summits, but they want to get through in finals, they have 2 years. So in these 2 years, how would you maybe what would you suggest these people to do? What to develop in their CV? What sort of pointers should they try to include so that they get reference at least in their finals?
Sure. I think that's a very good point raised by you. So as I mentioned, like I'll take you through how my interview went. So before my interviewer had my CV, and he highlighted 3 to 4 points on my CV, and I could see that he highlighted 3 to 4 points. So when I observed one common point across this was either the CV point was related to e-commerce industry, or whether it was related to customer obsession. I think one of the leadership principles. So one of the things I observed was one of the projects which I worked on was how can e-commerce industries, like e-commerce players, do to sell jewelry or the large scale what you call the high price items on the Amazon. But we see laptops getting sold and other products getting sold, but why can't we sell jewelry? How can we ensure that the jewelry can be sold, and what are the challenges which you are facing for the same? That was one of the projects. So, and it was data backed, and we had done a primary and secondary research. So it was most of the around the interviewer spent around 50 to 20 minutes discussing on how we went about the approaching this problem, because it was related to e-commerce industry. So I would obviously say, if you can pick up some projects or do as part of your curriculum, like you do have the option to, like you have any project as it is broad area where you can choose the domain where you want to work with. So if you are targeting e-commerce, try to pick up at least 2 to 3 projects in the various courses across courses which you are part of, to see if you can do something new, try to pick up a challenging problem and try to see your approval. So try to see your approach. So as I said, the project which was that would be really helpful. The second course was we had this course called UGCA, user generated content analytics, which is again analyzing the user tweets and then the social media content on all. And I said the project assigned to me was text, like to reduce product quality defects using text. So they saw a fit in these two projects which was done by me. So they grilled me about this UGCA project, like how did you go about this? Why did you choose this particular problem statement? And what was your approach? What are your insights which you had got from this project? So if you can pick up 2 to 3 projects related to e-commerce or related to say any of the things which is related, which the e-commerce industries are focusing on, that would be a points for you to discuss. It will first enable you to get a shortlist for the interviews. Once you get a shortlist, the interviewer will be more focused on these points because this is something which is related to what they're working on, and it will give you a chance to discuss in the CV. And even your work ex, if you can mention few points which are related, like if you have worked with any e-commerce industry, like if you're consulting experience with the e-commerce industry, or if you have done any projects for the e-commerce clients, if you can highlight them, again it would be a brownie point for you to discuss in the interview.
Okay. So I mean, just to sum up, what would be like the 2 3 things which you would recommend a person to have? Like, if like I'll just simplify the question for you. There are 5 sections generally in your CV. One is your academics, work experience, internships, projects. Then you have extracurricular activities, and then position or responsibilities. So with respect to like having a preference at e-commerce, maybe brands, having a go at them, in your internships and projects, what would you suggest a person to maybe intern in or maybe have a project certification on a particular course, something which would add value to maybe e-commerce opportunities?
So I think like e-commerce industry, I think product management is the must sort of the role currently. So if you're looking for product management, there are few courses happening like that. We have courses certificates on product management. We have certificates on Udemy and then edX. So we have various certificates, online certificates available. If you're like again, if you're really focused on a particular role, like this is what I want to get in, like if it's product management or if you want to get into consulting, then we have this consulting courses run by Coursera, or we have the consulting courses run by BCG. You can do it and highlight it in your CV, like I've done this and this is what I want to show it to you, because it becomes the interviewer knows this guy is really interested in the role and he has put in the extra efforts, as I mentioned earlier. Like as I mentioned, few of my like batchmates have done the product management course on Coursera and they have highlighted it. They have done few internships, like they have done few live projects. They picked up live projects related to e-commerce industry, and they have highlighted in your CV, this is what I have done for the live commerce. So that goes in the internships and projects. And then if you come to the work part is mostly what you've done before pre-MBA. You can't do much change over there, but what you can do is, as I mentioned, you can highlight the points which are related to e-commerce industry. Few companies look for leadership role, like roles like program manager is something which is stakeholder driven. So if you're taken up any leadership role which is stakeholder driven, like I have conducted a event during our cultural fest which was more stakeholder driven, which I highlighted in my CV. This is something which I have done for stakeholder management, that would be helpful in the leadership. And then you have this business case studies which you are part of. So as I mentioned, I was part of the business case studies which involve analytical logical skills, task invictus being one of them. So I highlighted this key, this is something which I have done and this proves my analytical skills. So what are the skill sets needed? And to summarize it, it would be like, what are the skill sets needed for the role and how did you bring it up in the various sections in your CV?
Okay. Uh, that was great. And as you giving me a point to actually follow up, is about task, the competition that you participated in. So just wanted to confirm, is this the flagship competition that TAS comes out with in other colleges as well? Is it Invict TAS is the only one?
So TAS has two competitions. One is TBLA, and the other Tata Business Leadership, and the other is Invictus. So the flagship one is the TBLA one, where you are given a case study, which you do. And Invictus is mostly the simulation driven. So it's also like in TAS, it's a strategy driven, and it's in Invictus, it's simulation driven, where you need to analyze a company device. It's a completely simulator. You will be working with other companies, and they'll have their own marketing strategy, finance strategy, operation strategy, budget allocations. How do you pitch in? You need to pitch in, like it's completely having your own startup. What are the products which you want to produce, market, and what are the scale and quantity at which you want to produce them, what is the price point which you want to decide. It's all simulation. So they have this simulation based case study, Invictus. Yeah.
Okay, so how was your experience of participating in this competition, and what were your strategies of maybe acing it because you were the winner of it?
Yeah, so again, we added, like, luckily in SPJMR, we added this course called DAS, Decision Analysis Simulation, so which was related to the Invictus. And I believe it's part of most of the colleges. Like, while during our finals, we interacted with the students from Ahmedabad and Bangalore, and they also had a similar course. So that course was something which I really liked. Even while doing the course, we used to compete with our batchmates, where we were split in teams of 5, and we used to have our own company. Like, it's like having your own startup in a virtual environment, and you need to devise everything. That course, obviously, I would say one of the courses which really excited me. So we took part in TAS Invictus because I thought this is something which is close to my heart, where my interest lies. And unfortunately, like, SP has this program, Global Immersion Program, where we go to US for a 3-week exchange program. So the timings of this case study was, the challenge was such that it was colliding with our exchange program. So the timings were odd. So the deadline submission used to be at 4 a.m. in the morning for US time. So we used to go in the morning to the classes, and then it was our once in a lifetime, like, it's the opportunity to go to US. So we used to go around in the evening, try to spend 2 to 3 hours exploring the local market, come back and then do the simulation. So luckily we could clear the campus round, and again, it was campus. We were the campus finalists. So once we cleared the campus round, then we had the finals, and it was kind of collaborating with your autumn's internship. We had the autumn interview going on at that time, so we are not sure whether we'll be able to make it to the finals. And luckily, what happened was, the 2 of us within our team, like, we had a team of 3, and 2 of us got placed before the final round, so we could go and attend the finals. And yeah, everything came in place, and we could clear it. So that was a very, like, I would say, one of the best experiences of my MBA life, like pitching your idea to Chandrasekharan, like the chairman. Chandrasekharan was part of the process, final pitch which you are part of. Then you had the Tata CEOs, where you need to pitch your idea, like, this is what you want to do, this is the investment which you are seeking for, and then you need to validate them. So pitching your idea to the stalwart leaders, and then receiving applause from them, I would definitely say. And then giving a speech in front of them, I would say the entire day is still fresh in my mind. So yeah, it's a very good experience.
So what exactly is the process of Invictus? Are there 3-4 rounds? I mean, how do these rounds go forward?
So Invictus, we have a campus round, as I said. So this simulation is such that we have multiple rounds of simulation. So the campus round had 5 rounds of simulation, I believe. So in each round, you have a status quo, like, what is after each round, you need to do your submission, and then you get a status quo, where you are standing, how is your product selling, how are your competitors doing, and based on that analysis, you need to plan for the second round. So you have a total of 5 rounds, and then at the end of 5th round, whoever has the highest, let's say they have a particular criteria, like metrics, based on which they will be evaluating you. One of the metrics would be, what is your PLNL, what would be the amount of sales which you achieve, what is your market penetration, what is your, let's say, PE ratio, and all different criteria, and then they judge a final winner. So we ended up being the campus winner. Once we were the campus winner, then we had an on-campus round in the Taj at Mumbai. So I think 10 colleges from across India, like 10 campus finalists from across India, were part of the campus finals, the national finals. And the national finals had 8 rounds, which was planned across a single day. Like, we were given 1 hour for a round. We need to plan our strategy. Then we had to wait for 10-15 minutes for the results to be announced. And then again, we had 1 hour. So it was like a long and tiring day, where it involved a lot of data crunching. So your brain was getting tired, but again, you had to keep up with the flow. So there were many comebacks which were happening. Like, at the end of each round, there were strategies, like there was surprise strategy followed by other teams, and the way they focused on. And then we had to compete with them. Like, you're not competing with one competitors to analyze what is their strategy and then plan. You had 7 to 8 competitors who are having their own strategy, which is getting changed after each round, and you need to plan accordingly and sell your inventory. It was quite good, like, and it was tiring. And then, but we had 8 rounds. At the end of the 8th round, yeah, we luckily turned up to be the winners.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that experience. So now that we have come to the end of the discussion that we have to do amongst ourselves, I'll just open this group Q&As.
As I said, so to give a background, product management is one role which needs to closely interact with the business, the technical team, and then you have the UI team. So it depends on the companies. Like companies like Amazon looks for zero like technical background. So I've seen people who are from operations background, like who have done their BTech in mechanical or let's say civil engineering, and then they did an MBA and they got selected for a product management role. It's good to have a technical background because during your discussions with the technical team you can drive it, but it's not a must for Amazon, at least I say. And that same would go for other companies like EduYou, which is considered very famous for product management, Make My Trip, other companies. Few companies which are exception here, I would say, is companies like Microsoft. They offer a program manager role, but it's more related to product management, and they look for an expertise in like technical background because their products are more technical driven, where you'll be kind of handling the technical aspects of it. You'll have an engineer who will be coding it, but you will be also acting as a technical program manager. So companies like Microsoft expect you to have a technical background. Okay, fresher. So I think people freshers generally have this like the apprehensions that they'll not get the shortlist or they'll not be able to get the crack the interviews. But I would say like most of the companies look for freshers. So I think that's a advantage you have, at least for FMCGs who are looking for who want to get into marketing or finance role. I've seen many freshers, like preference being given to freshers and then trying to crack that. If it was more on like if I didn't have an educational like work ex, then I would be more focusing on the projects which are done in my undergraduation. Like at least in my CV I didn't mention my undergraduate projects because you have a one page CV and my work ex was sufficient, like it occupied off page. But if you have projects during your undergraduation which you are like fresh in your mind, at least the projects which I have done in my undergraduate not fresh in my mind. So if those projects will be fresh in your mind, so you can emphasize on those, which I would have emphasized. I would have emphasized on the projects which I have done as part of my curriculum, the various projects which I have done. So that would be the different strategy, and I would have more focused on the HR questions, because for freshers and since FMCGs are the ones who are recruiting, they would mostly focus on the HR questions. So I would have focused on those. So for a product management role, as I said, if someone has done an IT background and if they have like previous background in product management, well and good. How you can focus is pick up projects which are done. Like we had a product management course in SPJMR, which I picked up, and the project which I did for the part of the project management course, we kind of gave it really high importance and try to understand the entire piece and bits of it. Also, we try to do live projects related to product management. So those are the things, and then we try to read multiple books related to product management. Where are the be part of multiple forums. So if you see, there are forums like the product tree and then the product management folks on LinkedIn groups which are part of it. So you can be part of those forums where they try to bring a leader, business leader who is a product or VP for a particular startup. So recently we had from Kata Book. Then we have product leaders from various other markets like Bharat Pay, Rupee, who come there and share their ideas. How did they plan the product strategy for the particular companies, which will help you understand what are the various things which you need to consider as part of being a product manager for a company, and then which will better drive you your interview. So that's how you can prepare for your product management role. So program management or product management. So yeah, the role, as I mentioned, few companies don't have this like different roles, program and product. Amazon has it, and few companies like, as I mentioned, Microsoft has only program management role, which is kind of, which also handles the product management. So it depends on your interest, like where you want to be. Like program is more stakeholder management, where you don't own anything mostly, but you try to drive project by bringing the people on the same ground. And then the product management is something where you own a product, where you are responsible, like where you try to identify. It's again working backwards from the customer, trying to identify the challenges or the gaps in the current customer experience and try to fill them up with your product solutions. So both are exciting, both are challenging in their own way. So it depends on where you want to be. Are you looking for something where you have product ownership and then drive things, or where you are good at stakeholder management and you feel that's something which you're good at and you want to enjoy doing, like bringing people on the same page, driving your idea, and then getting alignment from them, and then ensuring the project is kick-started and then seeing it through the entire phases and upcoming the challenges. Yeah, it depends on your interest again. I think that's one standard answer for all the MBA questions.
Yeah.
No, I believe for e-commerce companies, yeah, keywords do matter, because what I analyze is, so one of our batchmates was really good at getting these keywords, the same CV point, you get it framed, and then we go to this guy and he's good at including the keywords, what I can say, what are the metrics which you can use to, so that you get the shortlist. So most of the CV shortlist happen for 30 to 40 seconds. They analyze the CV, so the keywords do play an emphasis. What I can do for the keywords was, I remember we were shared a list of keywords which, like database of keywords which we could include as part of our CV to identify various things.
So I think that's it. With respect to the queries as well, because you actually explained it properly through the entire course of
Either
1 hour that we put together.
Sure. So either it's everything clear or nothing clear.
No, I think everything is clear. So thank you, Vamshi, again. Thank you for taking our time and helping these people out. Obviously, we'll try to have a session with you where you would probably have your team members from TAS, InvecTAS, and we'll probably discuss that competition on maybe an elaborative manner, so that these people actually get to know, and when they participate in this competition, they have an upper hand. That's the maybe a head start. That's something that we plan to have. So, but thank you for this session, and thank you everyone for joining in. Hopefully, this would have been again an enriching one for you guys with respect to specifically IT and e-commerce. So, thank you again for joining. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, Aksha. Thanks for bringing us all together. And I think it's a great session. At least I would have loved to have this session at the start of my MBA career, to frankly speak, which I didn't have, unfortunately. But happy to help you guys. Like, try to reach out to me if you have any further queries regarding any competition or in general. Always, like, if I'm not available on call, I'll try to reply on Chime or email. So I'll share the details with Harsh. So happy to help you guys anytime. Feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you, Vamshi. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
All the best, guys. All the best.
Bye. All the best, guys.